I 1859 utga Darwin sin bok Artenes opprinnelse. Felles avstamning og naturlig utvalg ble grunnlaget for moderne biologi slik Darwin hadde forklart det, med livets tre som tydeliggjøring av teorien. Men det fantes en utfordring. Problemet lå i det kambriske jordlaget.
The distinctness of specific forms and their not being blended together by innumerable transitional links is a very obvious difficulty. I allude to the manner in which species belonging to several of the main divisions of the animal kingdom suddenly appear in the lowest known fossiliferous rocks.
When Darwin was writing The Origin of Species, it was well known at the time that the first fossils of animals appeared suddenly without precursors in the geological record. So there was a deep conflict between what his theory told him to expect to find, namely an abundance of transitional forms going back to that common ancestor for the animals, versus what was there in the fossil record.
Darwin var klar over at dersom hans teori var riktig, så måtte det eldre jordlaget under det kambriske jordlaget vise en sammenhengende fossilkjede, fra enkle tidligere former til komplekse dyr som trilobitter. Her måtte man finne mange fossiler, som gradvis utviklet seg til det vi finner i det kambriske jordlaget. Slike fossilbevis vil ha dokumentert utviklingen som evolusjonsteorien forutsier.
But Darwin says in The Origin, where are these transitional forms? They're not there in the fossil record. What we see instead are fully formed, discrete groups. Now that's a world-class puzzle for someone like Darwin.
If my theory be true, it is indisputable that before the lowest Cambrian stratum was deposited, long periods elapsed, and during these periods of time, the world swarmed with living creatures. To the question of why we do not find rich fossiliferous deposits belonging to these assumed earlier periods prior to the Cambrian, I can give no satisfactory answer.
I det kambriske jordlaget finnes det et mangfold av fossiler, som utgjør de fleste grunnstrukturer som dyr fortsatt har i dag. Problemet er at de dukker opp så raskt at biolog Richard Dawkins sa
It is as though they were just planted there, without any evolutionary history.
Disse fossilene ga vitenskapen den første innsikt i det biologiske liv i det kambriske hav. Dataanimasjon puster nå liv i dette stenbildet. Opabinia ser ut som hentet fra en futuristisk roman. Dens utseende er så annerledes at den fortsatt ikke har kunnet blitt plassert i biologiske klassifiseringskategorier med sine 5 øyne og sin gripetang. Det fantes mange dyr med vidt forskjellig kroppsoppbygning, som for eksempel Vivaxia eller Marellakrabben. Den er minst like biologisk avansert som dagens krabber. Hallucigenia har forvirret paleontologer helt siden den først ble oppdaget. Dyret har spisse tagger og nåltynne ben. Men den ubeseirede jegeren var Anomalocaris. Den kunne bli 1 meter lang og var utstyrt med 2 piggklør som førte dens spytte til flere rader med sylskarpe tenner.
When you talk about Cambrian explosion, lots of people find it fascinating and so forth, but when you get into the topic, generally there are 2 reactions. People who loves it and people kind of avoid it. The Cambrian explosion does challenge the traditional idea of gradual evolution of animals because they all seem to appear all of a sudden. And the problem is, how do we explain it?
There's another amazing find that's been made in China. Paleobiologists have discovered little tiny microscopic sponge embryos in the layers of rock just beneath the layer that documents the Cambrian explosion.
Disse embryoer stammer fra dyr med myk kropp. Noen av disse sies å ha blitt fossiler 60 millioner år før den kambriske eksplosjonen.
This is highly significant because one of the most popular explanations for the missing Precambrian fossils is that the Precambrian animals were too soft and too small to have been preserved.
Qian har undersøkt forstenede embryoer siden 1999, og han stiller spørsmål til den darwinistiske forklaringsmodellen.
If these lower strata can preserve an embryo, if they can preserve a soft microscopic embryo, then why couldn't they have preserved the larger ancestral forms that supposedly evolved into the Cambrian animals? In other words, if you can preserve something as fragile as an embryo, why couldn't you, in the same strata of rock, preserve the immediate ancestor of a hard-shelled trilobite?
So the idea that the fossil record is too damaged to provide us with at least a general picture, that idea just doesn't wash.
Like Darwin, Walcott thought that the Cambrian explosion was an illusion. He was convinced that the fossils were there, they were just inaccessible to scientific discovery, and he expected that they would eventually be found someplace buried deep beneath the oceans. We now know that the oldest rocks on the bottom of the seafloor only date back to the Jurassic period, which means that on the standard geologic time scale, they're hundreds of millions of years younger than the rocks below the Cambrian strata.
If you are looking for the ancestors to the Cambrian groups, the last place you would expect to find them is out somewhere on the seafloor. Those rocks are much too young.
To the paleontologists, the lack of intermediate fossils is well known. Some people still think that if you look long and hard enough, you will eventually find them. But I think most of the paleontologists that I have been in contact would not have that hope very high. They simply feel that we have looked long and hard enough, and they are not there. They are not there.
The difficulty of assigning any good reason for the absence of vast piles of strata, rich in fossils, beneath the Cambrian system is very great. The case at present must remain inexplicable, and may be truly urged as a valid argument against the views here entertained.
Darwins utviklingsteori en etablert tankemåte også i Norge. Men har evolusjon den beste forklaringen for fossilene som faktisk finnes? Hva tenker du? Takk for din tid.